What's up, everyone? I have some really shocking news to report that just came out very recently. According to Clutch Points, JKidd is now the frontrunner for the Knicks head coaching job. For the longest, it's been reported that Thibodeau was the favorite for the head coaching position. It's even been reported recently that Thibodeau has been studying Knicks game footage while waiting for a job offer. So this is a complete about face, as the media is now saying that JKidd, of all people, is now the favorite for the head coaching position. So in this video, I'm going to talk about how we got here to where Kidd is now the favorite and what that means for the Knicks going forward. Before we continue, I'd appreciate it if you guys would drop a like on the video and subscribe. I love making content for you guys, and supporting the channel by subscribing really helps me to produce more awesome videos. Now let's continue. So how did we get to Kidd being the favorite for the job? Well, according to Clutch Points, contract negotiations with Thibodeau stalled. The article says, a source said Knicks owner James Dolan has been unwilling to agree to his contract request. While the possibility of an agreement between the two parties still exists, it will require a concession from either side to work. So it looks like until either side concedes, Thibodeau won't be the coach of the New York Knicks. So now with Tibbs out, it looks like Leon Rose is choosing to go with Kidd. Why is Kidd the favorite to land the head coaching position out of the other 10 candidates? Well, according to Stefan Bonny of the New York Daily News, the Knicks prefer to hire Kidd over the other candidates because they believe that he'll help them attract stars in free agency. If you've been rooting for the Knicks for any length of time, you know the reason why the Knicks are always stuck in mediocrity is because they're always star chasing. Just last year, the Knicks banked their entire free agency plans on getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and that was a huge dud. In 2010, the Knicks moved heaven and earth to create cap space to sign LeBron James, and that was also a huge dud. The Knicks always revolve their team plans around acquiring stars, and it never works. This was without even counting the screw-ups back in the mid-2000s with Stephon Marbury and Eddie Curry. It's very funny because a lot of casual NBA fans often say that the Knicks have been rebuilding for 20 years. But the reality is, the Knicks are where they are today because they refuse to rebuild. Instead, they're always trying to take shortcuts. If the Knicks are trying to acquire Kidd because they think he'll help them land stars, then this is extremely scary and more of the same nonsense that has kept the Knicks as a rock-bottom team for the last 2 decades. The primary star that the Knicks probably think JKidd can help them get is Giannis Antetokounmpo. This isn't anything new, as it was reported months ago that the Knicks want Kidd to acquire Giannis in free agency. Giannis has a very strong relationship with Kidd, as Kidd coached Giannis back on the Bucks and actually played a huge role in his development. This strategy of hiring Kidd in order to get Giannis when he becomes a free agent in 2021 is stupid. And this type of signing would prove that the Knicks just never learn. Superstars don't sign with teams because of a relationship with a coach. Stars sign with teams in order to win a championship. In 2021, Giannis likely will resign with the Bucks as they've been the 1 seed in the East for the past 2 years. But even if he doesn't, there are other teams that can offer a much better chance at winning than the Knicks. Giannis can just sign with teams like Miami and Toronto, who can both offer him a good chance at a title. The reality is, JKidd is not a strong enough selling point to allure Giannis to a trash team. There is absolutely zero chance that Giannis will sign with the Knicks in 2021. The fact that the Knicks are still making the same mistake is extremely disheartening. The Knicks should have learned that hiring a coach isn't going to land them stars from David Fizdale. Fizdale is known as a player's coach. When the Knicks hired Fizz, it wasn't because they thought he was the best man for the job. Budenholzer was available, and the Knicks passed on him for Fizdale. The Knicks hired Fizdale because he thought he would help them land both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. We all know that that ended in a complete disaster. It looks like the Knicks haven't learned their lesson, and they're about to repeat the same mistake. So since we know that the Knicks are hiring Kidd to try to land Giannis, is Kidd even a good coach? I actually made an entire video breaking down the pros and cons of JKidd, and if you want to watch that, I'll leave a link in the description. But all in all, Kidd is a very mediocre coach. The main issue of Jason Kidd is that he's extremely old school and rejects modern basketball. Kidd didn't emphasize the three-point shot and directed guys to shoot in the mid-range on the Bucks. This simply isn't how basketball is played in 2020. There's a reason why a team like the Rockets has embraced analytics and not coincidentally has been one of the better teams in the league over the past half decade. The three-point shot and shots at the rim are the most efficient shots in basketball. If your offense is based around getting shots in those areas and you have the right players, you'll be a great offensive team. Under Kidd, the Bucks always ranked towards the bottom in three-point attempts a game. In all 4 of his seasons as a head coach of the Bucks, the team ranked 25th or lower in three-point attempts a game. When Mike Budenholzer took over as head coach, he integrated a modern offense by having the Bucks take more threes. Last year, the Bucks took the 4th most three-point attempts a game, and this year they take the 2nd most three-point attempts a game. As a result of taking and making more threes, the Bucks have been one of the elite NBA offenses the past 2 seasons, ranking 3rd in offensive efficiency both this year and last year. Jason Kidd was clearly holding the Bucks back. All it really took for the Bucks was to make a coaching change, and they went from a low-level playoff seed to the best regular season team in the NBA over the past 2 years. Another area where Kidd was inept was his defense. Kidd came up with a very good defensive innovation back in 2014, where the Bucks would trap ball handlers in the pick and roll. At the time, it was actually very effective because it forced a lot of turnovers. But what eventually ended up happening is the league adjusted to the style of defense, and Kidd didn't have another trick up his sleeve, and as a result, the Bucks totally fell off defensively. This is evidenced by the fact that the Bucks ranked 2nd in defensive efficiency in his first year, but 19th or worse every other season after that. Again, all it took was a coaching change for the Bucks to get better on defense. Budenholzer changed the Bucks' defensive schemes, and the Bucks have ranked 1st in defensive efficiency in each of the past 2 years. All it took was for the Bucks to fire Kidd and hire a great coach, and the Bucks became title contenders. This is without any radical personnel changes. As we can see, all in all, Jason Kidd is a pretty terrible coach, and this isn't even just my opinion. In fact, according to Bleacher Report, someone who previously worked with Kidd said that hiring him as head coach would be a terrible choice, even going as far as saying, "I wouldn't hire Jason Kidd if he was the last coach standing." So is there any positives that Kidd can bring on the floor? Well, Kidd can probably do a good job at player development. After all, Kidd did play a huge role in the growth of Giannis. Under Kidd, Giannis went from a skinny teenager to an MVP. Part of this growth was Kidd using Giannis as a point guard, which developed his ball handling and passing abilities. Kidd also deserves credit for helping Middleton to develop into a star. So on the surface, Kidd doesn't seem like a winning coach, but he does seem like a coach that could be pretty good for a rebuild. But are the Knicks really focused on rebuilding? Based on the daily news and the history of the Knicks, this move seems like it's just about trying to acquire stars. It's already been reported by Mark Berman that the Knicks will likely have a heavy veteran presence on next year's roster. It doesn't look like the Knicks will go into next year trying to develop their young players. The Knicks are going to overload the roster with vets and hope that they'll be able to make the playoffs next season so they can attract Giannis or other stars in free agency. This strategy is most likely going to fail. Again, the Knicks never learned from the past. Last year, the Knicks had a heavy veteran presence on the roster. They not only failed to make the playoffs, but they undermined the growth of some of the young players on the team. I'm not wishing this on the Knicks, but a Kidd hiring is probably just going to end in disaster. Jason Kidd probably doesn't even last more than 2 seasons as a head coach before he ends up getting fired. But I want to hear what you guys think. Is hiring Kidd the right move for the Knicks franchise? Tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.